Hello, welcome to the show. My name's Anna Elliseva and you're watching Primetime on RT, your daily local news show. Before we start, we like to take a look at what's going to happen this hour in terms of news. Here are the headlines. Thousands of opposition activists are rallying in Moscow to mark a year since a violent anti-government protest and demanding the release of those accused of inciting clashes with police. The remains of 13 people are found in the wreckage of a small plane that went missing 1 year ago. The reason for the crash is still a mystery.
Ministries may have to take exams every 5 years in order to keep their jobs, under plans from the country's culture ministry.
And we're also going to have a look at one of the most controversial exhibitions to come to Moscow, the anatomical display, Secrets of the Human Body. Thousands of opposition activists have gathered in central Moscow to mark 1 year since mass protests that ended in violent clashes. Last year's anti-government rallies left dozens injured and saw 400 people arrested. Primetime's Alexei Yarashevsky is on the spot. He's going to join us live a little bit later with all of the information about what's happening there this time round. Let's push things on here on Prime Time. We've got plenty of stories for you. Here's one of them. The wreckage of a plane that crashed in the Urals, killing all 13 on board, has been found nearly a year after it went missing. Authorities had searched thousands of kilometres without success, but it turned out they didn't need to look so far afield. It was in a swamp just a few kilometres from the airport. For more, here's Andrew Farmer with me in the studio. Andrew, good evening to you.
Evening, Anya.
Yeah, it broke the news this morning that this wreckage has been found a year later. Before we go into that, though, could you remind us of what had happened?
Yeah, because it is bizarre, I have to say. I mean, this biplane, and we'll see pictures of the wreckage, but it was a biplane and it was used to monitor wildfires. But what happened on June the 11th last year is quite extraordinary. It's claimed that the pilot, under the influence of alcohol, decided to take this plane for a joyride along with 12 of his friends and his relatives. Now, the plane took off without permission from air traffic control and went missing shortly afterwards. There was a huge search by the authorities. For a number of months, they covered thousands of kilometres but could not find this plane. And then just this week, local hunters found it and also tipped off a local journalist.
How did they manage to do it?
Well, from all accounts, they stumbled across it. I spoke to the journalist who subsequently went to the scene and saw it for himself, and he told me that it was a very grisly scene, but he wasn't particularly surprised that the authorities hadn't found this plane before, simply because of the type of terrain.
Yeah, I believe it. It was in a swamp, and let's have a listen to that.
Yeah, let's see what he said. Matsarsky was one of 3 people who made the discovery, and he is with us now. This plane was missing for over a year. How did you find it?
We were approached on behalf of a group of hunters who saw a strange metallic structure out in the bogs not far from the city of Serov. Although they suspected it to be the plane, they were not sure. The location was only 4 kilometers away from the nearest road, but the journey was very difficult, and it's no easy task trekking through the taiga. When we got there, it was obvious that the metallic object was indeed what was left of the plane.
And can you describe the scene of the crash? Was the plane badly damaged? Were there bodies?
The plane itself went down at a very sharp angle and became half submerged in the bog. The shock of the impact stripped the plane's body of sheeting, leaving behind only a skeletal airframe packed with human bones. Not one skeleton was intact. We counted 11 skulls in various conditions, some with evident burn marks, others with multiple puncture wounds.
And why do you think the authorities were unable to find this aeroplane? After all, it crashed only 8 kilometres from the airfield.
For most of the year, the taiga in this area is simply impassable. The plane crashed in the middle of a bog, and with ice still present there, it allowed us, if barely, to get to the wreckage. In the winter, the snow is too deep, and in the summer, the entire area becomes a bog. When the rescue was conducted in the summer, rescuers simply couldn't reach the area, and we saw the paths that they had left behind. It turned out they had passed only about 50 metres from an area where the wreck could be seen.
Wow.
Yeah, so quite a graphic account of what happened. We still don't know exactly the cause of this crash, and a criminal investigation has been reopened. But there are a number of interesting theories, because there are a number of puzzling questions.
Well, you've mentioned alcohol intoxication to start off with.
And one question would be, well, why on earth would they want to take off anyway? What's really in it for them? And another question is, well, among the passengers was a local police chief, also a security guard, and the night watchman of the airfield, which is a bit bizarre in itself.
Yeah, interesting company of people.
At the time last summer when it went down, the officials said that they thought perhaps one reason would have been they were trying to fly to a local bathhouse or a sauna, because apparently they are remotely located in this part of the world. Another reason may have been they were about to go on a fishing trip. So we're still not sure at the moment, but another reason is perhaps more sinister. History in this part of the world shows that back in 1959, I don't know if you remember, there was a film about this, but there was a famous air crash there called the Dyatlov Pass. There, 9 people perished. And when the site was finally found, it was also found that their bodies had been mutilated, and one of the bodies had had its tongue cut out. And there was a Soviet investigation. There were ski hikers at the time. There was an investigation by the Soviet government and the authorities there, and they said they had died from a compelling unknown force.
So, and it's still unknown.
Still unknown. So there's a spooky parallel there. So, I mean, we do have to emphasise we don't know what has caused this crash. It clearly is very strange, but it's definitely worth keeping an eye on to see what the authorities finally say.
Absolutely. Andrew, well, thank you for bringing us the latest. Andrew Farmer. And another air crash happened today, this time in the Irkutsk region. An Mi-8 search helicopter patrolling a flooded area went down, claiming the lives of 9 passengers on board, including 3 crew members, the acting head of the regional emergency service and several emergency workers. Rescuers have recovered only 2 bodies, but they confirmed that there were no survivors. The helicopter was carrying nearly 2 tons of explosive materials used to break ice on the rivers. The tragedy was witnessed by another helicopter pilot, and he says the Mi-8 exploded in the air and fell onto the icy lake. You're watching Primetime on RT. Thanks for being our viewers this Monday evening. Here's what else we have for you. We're going to find out how a video giving Halloween makeup tips ended up being blacklisted in Russia. And the Finance Ministry wants top managers to pay 13% tax on any management liability insurance that they have. Details are coming up later in our business bulletin. And we will hear why performance artists might have to pass regular state exams to keep their jobs. A Moscow court has upheld the blacklisting of a video giving tips on how to dress up for Halloween. The YouTube clip called Video Lesson How to Slash Your Wrists was blocked last year. Russia's state consumer rights watchdog complained that it promoted suicide. The video gives instructions on how to apply makeup to give the impression of having slashed one's wrists. Russia introduced a blacklist of websites in November 2012. It includes sites that are deemed to promote suicide, child pornography and drug abuse. In May, Aero Express is cancelling a number of night trains to and from Sheremetyevo Airport. Trains will be cancelled from the airport at 10, 11 and midnight. We're talking the evening. And trains to the airport are going to be cancelled from 10:30, 11:30 and 10:30 midnight as well. That's, of course, from Belaruski station. The dates of the cancellations are tonight and tomorrow. Also, from May the 10th until the 15th and from the 18th to the 24th, the cancellations are due to rail repair works. There we go. We're going to be back after a very short break. Do stay with us.
Я совершил преступление. Я совершил преступление и признан на момент преступления невменяемым. Невменяемым. Освободите меня, пожалуйста, из этих стен. Где, скажите, Владимир Владимирович, освободил меня с снятием правонарушения на свободу. Я уже готов к свободе полностью.
And now it's time for business news with Katie Pilbeam. It's good to see you. Did you have a nice weekend?
I did indeed. I was a bit sad that the sun wasn't out.
Yeah, it was very rainy.
A bit disappointed
when
by
it
that.
just started, it was quite nice actually because it smelled so fresh. And then by the end of, towards, I should say, Sunday evening, I was a bit.
Yeah, a bit fed up by then. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't mind the rain. I rather like it, especially when I'm in bed. I can hear it. But well, that's it. I'm used to it. But I just wanted to get out because I've got a bike now and I wanted to go riding.
Oh,
and,
cool. Yeah. I have a bicycle as well. We should...
Oh, we should cycle. Yeah, I love it. But I'm a bit sore today. Right. OK, we're going to get to some business because the Finance Ministry wants top managers, I should say, to pay 13% tax on any management liability insurance they have. Now, about half of the largest companies in Russia insure their managers in this way. Last year, they spent $50 million on management liability insurance, covering their managers for some $4 billion. And we're going to get onto the currency rates then. Now, the central bank has decreased the ruble against both the US dollar and the euro by 4 and 11 kopecks respectively. As for the markets then, both the Russian indices, the RTS and the MICEX, ended the trading day with modest gains. Activas and AFC were among the leaders, growing more than 3% on the back of positive corporate news. Now, Russia's biggest payment system, Kiwi, was valued at $884 million for its IPO in New York. The listing was made in the middle of the price corridor, and shareholders earned more than $212 million. Most of the buyers were investment funds from the US. Kiwi says all earnings will be invested into the Russian IT sector. And to other news then. Moscow's real estate market is performing unusually for spring. In the first quarter of the year, prices for the newly built property grew in line with inflation, so in effect didn't actually grow at all. And prices for old property have dropped for the first time since the 2008 crisis. Now, experts say it's too early to call this a trend. They say one reason for the slowdown could be the significant fall in mortgage volumes, 30% against 50% in the first quarter of 2012, but they name the global economic situation as the main factor. And the first quarter was not just bad for routers, but also for brewers too. All top market players report a fall in sales, ranging from 17% in the case of InBev to 5% for Heineken. Companies blame the ban on night sales of alcohol for the decrease, but federal statistics show a fall of just 2.6% in retail beer sales. Vodka makers also report a decline of almost 8% in the first quarter. Russia and the US are to join forces in the fight against fish poachers in the Far East. Illegal fishing cost Alaska's fishermen an estimated $560 million last year, while Russia lost more than $1.5 billion. Russia's accounts chamber says the legal fishing industry in Russia is half the size of its black market counterpart. The agreement with the US is likely to be signed before the end of May. And finally, some holiday-related news then. Many Russians reportedly failed to get to their travel destinations after getting stuck in traffic. People who hope to go to Ukraine, Belarus or one of the Baltic states by car were the worst affected. The average time spent in traffic, just standing still, was 12 hours. Many gave up and returned home, despite having prepaid for their hotels. Unbelievable. Imagine that.
So bad.
How bad, being stuck in the 12 hours?
Yeah,
How
my mates
disappointing.
posted a photograph and it sort of shows a distance of, I don't know, 12 metres or something like that. And they said, do you see that ad over there around the corner? Well, we got to it 12 hours later.
Oh,
it's
no.
incredible.
That I would have to get out and just start screaming and jumping up and down or doing something.
I'd like to see that.
Because 12 hours in a car just... Oh,
You
it
can
would
make
be
new
so
friends.
irritating. Exactly, you can have a chat, can't you, have a picnic? But I mean, how disappointing. You've looked forward to this holiday for however long, maybe a year, 6 months, a month, I don't know. And you're stuck in traffic. It's so irritating.
It is.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I really hope that they
Something's
sort something out.
terminally wrong with the borders of this country.
Indeed, yeah. Or get on a bike. You could always bicycle to the
I
airport.
don't think you can bypass anyone ahead of you, though,
What, on a bike?
because everyone's in a queue.
True. And also, where would you put your luggage?
In a bike thing.
Yeah, but I got big
gotcha.
luggage.
I got you.
Yeah,
That's why I'm
so-
stammering. Okay. It was good seeing you. Come on over tomorrow evening for some more business news.
I will do.
And ridiculous chit-chat.
Yes,
that we
why not?
So well perform here.
Let's do it.
It's 16 minutes into the hour, still plenty ahead of us, including the following stories. The leader of Chechnya says the republic is safer than England and invites the world to come and see. Yay. Also, we meet the new resident of Moscow's zoo who's just moved over from Germany. But before all of those exciting stories happen, let's talk about a story that we previewed in the beginning of this show. Thousands of people indeed have gathered in central Moscow to mark 1 year since mass protests that ended in violent clashes. Last year, anti-government rallies left dozens injured and 400 arrested. Primetime's Alexei Yarashevsky joins us live now from the heart of the capital where everything's happening. Alexei, can you hear me well?
Yes, absolutely loud and clear.
All right. Please tell us, how large is the rally this time round?
Well, we understand that the number of people who are attending this rally is now closing to about 10,000. Despite that it's a working day in Russia today after a string of holidays, still many have decided to come here. Heavy police presence, I would say, probably for every protester. There's 3 policemen in the area, around about, well, I have to literally walk several kilometers to get to the place where I'm standing right now. The whole area is cordoned off by the police, of course, keeping in mind what exactly happened last year. Obviously, the authorities want everything to be strictly regulated. The event started a little more than an hour ago, but there was a chance that it wouldn't happen at all because during the construction of a stage, which was supposed to be the main stage of the protest rally here, a person, one of the volunteers, a 25-year-old man, died accidentally, and this even caused somewhat of a schism in the opposition, with some of the members of the opposition even saying that the rally should be cancelled because for moral reasons it was rather immoral to hold the rally on the place where a person died in the morning. But still the organizers decided to go ahead with this rally, all peaceful and rather calm so far, although we do have some unconfirmed reports, mostly Twitter reports, that there have been several people detained already, but we'll try to clarify it here on the spot, and probably the next time we'll be talking to you I'll probably give you an update on that as well.
Absolutely. So that we give our viewers an insight on what had happened a year ago, could you please remind us of the events that took place then?
Well, obviously the main message coming from this stage over here, the stage which in fact is a small bus which was provided by the Moscow authorities after the stage collapse. The main message here is that the people who the authorities believe have masterminded the riots on May the 6th last year, that these people need to be released. They believe them to be political prisoners. Indeed, last year, just one day before President Putin's inauguration, Moscow saw probably the biggest violence in years in a protest when thousands have gathered at the very same place, the Bolotnaya Square I'm standing right now. And at some point, some part of this crowd tried to break the police lines and march towards the Kremlin in a march of protest. That's when things got ugly. There were violent clashes between the protesters and the police, which led to many dozen injured, and more than 450 people were arrested. In fact, 24 of them are still remain in prison. There's a trial going, and basically their release and their status, as these people believe, of political prisoners is the main message of this rally, is the main topic which is being chanted from the stage over here.
Alexei, you've mentioned that so far it's pretty calm. Are there any signs that the rally could perhaps turn violent?
Well, I can say that I've walked through the crowd. It is, of course, quite hyped, and it is chanting rather harsh slogans, but I haven't seen any indication that things may go violent. Of course, it's too early to say because the rally will last for another hour. Back then, a year ago, in fact, the whole mess started exactly at the later stages of the rally. Everything was going smoothly, and at the very last minutes of the rally, things went violent. We'll, of course, have to wait and see whether this will be the case today, but so far, as I've said, there's been no indication that things may go violent or anything may happen, because, as I've said, the police presence here is very, very heavy, and the crowd is rather peaceful, although rather negative towards what they're saying.
Okay, thank you so much. That's our correspondent Alexei Yarashevsky. We are going to be talking to you a bit later on in the show for some more updates on what's going on where you are. Thank you so far. Okay, now back to more business news, actually. A number of the islands that form the British overseas territories have bowed to pressure for greater tax transparency. They've agreed to disclose information about account holders to several European countries. Primetime's Lindsay France can tell us what it all means for the business community registered in the Cayman Islands and other offshore havens. Lindsay, good evening to you. What territories are we talking about, and what is going to happen to them in detail, please?
Good evening. Yeah, the party may be over very soon for some account holders at very popular offshore tax havens. The British Virgin Islands, Bermuda, Anguilla, Montserrat, and Turks and Caicos Islands have entered into an information sharing agreement whereby they will disclose the names, addresses, birthdays, account numbers, account balances, and payment details of their customers. Now, and they will also disperse this info to the governments of the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Italy, and Spain. Now, these havens have been under intense pressure recently to lift the mask on illicit finance and tax evasion. And now that the ink is drying on this agreement, their customers will have to pay up. Now, according to the agreement, those with illegal money can escape prosecution if they pay up all unpaid taxes and plus a fine of between 10 and 20%. Now, last month, the UK offshore tax havens of Guernsey, the Isle of Man, and Jersey entered into information sharing agreements with the UK government. And so for those islands that also host many account holders from overseas, outside of Britain, the party is over for them as well. They will also have to be reporting to the UK government. Now, it just unravels a very intriguing paper trail whereby the authorities can get their hands on information that prior to this they had no real way to get a hold of. The lid will be lifted on who owns which companies, who is making what money, and who is not paying into the system that you and I have to pay into with regard to just being normal taxpayers. So a lot of very rich and possibly well-known people will have their names in the media very soon when it comes to finding out how much money they've got in these offshore tax havens that will start information sharing with these European countries.
Indeed, if they don't do something about it quick. Lindsay, what does all of this mean for Russian companies that are registered there?
Well, according to most experts, at this point, Russian companies may not have much shuffling to worry about at this point. As far as individuals go, British overseas territories have been very popular for Russians for quite some time. In fact, the Isle of Man was a popular offshore haven long before Cyprus came into the scene. The Virgin Islands and Bermuda have been very popular with those in the oil sector. Realistically, things may hardly change for Russians until an agreement to share tax information with the British territories is signed, and that looks like it may not happen until between 2014 and 2015. Now, that was one of the terms of Russia, of the Russian credit help that it lended in Cyprus. That was one of the terms of the agreement there. So it looks like that may come to fruition within the next couple of years. But any measures that break down the network of these tax havens force these companies and these individuals to reshuffle, which means there's a greater likelihood that they may repatriate some of their assets, and the governments will then see the tax profits from that. So it'll be very interesting to see what names of individuals and companies we see in the news as the lid is lifted on these accounts.
Indeed, you seem eager. I'm quite intrigued myself. Thank you very much, our correspondent Lindsay France. And on a very different note, Easter might be over, but the 2013 Easter Festival of Music is only just coming. The festival has become a significant musical event in the cultural life of the Russian capital, and this is its 12th year now. The programme includes various forms of classical music, from symphonic music to art song, and it introduces audiences to the sounds of Russian bell ringing, with the best bell ringers from around the country taking part. Meanwhile, performance artists of Russia could now have to pass exams every 5 years to continue working professionally in their field. And that's under a bill drafted by the Ministry of Culture. Primetime's Tom Barton can tell us more about it. Tom, good evening to you. So tell us, who is going to be affected by this law?
Hi there, Anya. Yes, it's performers. It's the creative sector, as it's been called by the Ministry of Culture, that has proposed this bill. Theatre actors, those in the cinema as well, those involved in creating concerts, and circus performing troupes as well. Of those people, every 5 years they'll have to sit an exam. It's not quite known what's in the exam. It's not really been said how those exams will be conducted, how they'll be ensured that they will be fair. But this is the proposal: every 5 years. If they fail those exams, or if they fail to show up for them, their contract is considered terminated, even if they had signed a contract which had previously been considered indefinite, which many of those in these various creative industries do have. About 30% of performers, says the Ministry of Culture, are essentially ballast to the various theatres or concert houses that they work for. They are no longer very often used. They're not very popular to the management there, and they think it's a way that perhaps to try and weed out some of this ballast from those particular production houses. They will require recertification, as they call it. Strangely enough, heads of these organisations are exempt from these exams, and as I've said, it's not quite clear how it's all going to fit together at the moment. Absolutely.
What motivated the drafting of this bill?
Well, as the Ministry of Culture sort of puts it, at the moment the problem is that there is a lot of infighting, a lot of it well publicised, but there's a lot of traditionally a lot of infighting inside theatres, being the best example. So, for example, these power struggles could involve a new director coming in and he then settling old scores or callously brushing aside unwanted actors just because he's got his own favourites when he comes in, or perhaps going the other way, when a new director comes in, perhaps the artistic company in place doesn't like him and conspires to try and get rid of him. So it's to try and stop those power struggles ruining the functioning of organisations like this. This is the ostensible purpose, says the Ministry of Culture. It could, they say, be extended to journalists. That's not currently part of the proposal, but they say that if the professional community deemed it so that they wanted that, it could be extended to journalists, which has garnered some criticism. Various groups saying that that would not be a method for improving the system, would just be used as a tool to crack down on various professionals within these industries.
Absolutely, leave the journalists out of it. It sounds like a very tough industry, not for the faint-hearted. What sort of scandals have we seen recently on the Russian cultural scene?
Absolutely, there's been making headlines. It's been a stock in trade for editors for the past year or so. I think the chief among them being the scandal surrounding the Bolshoi theatre. Nikolai Siskaridze, one of the head dancers there, been there since 1992, also a teacher, has been involved in very public and bitter rows with the management there. He's filed a lawsuit against them. They've not managed to settle out of court, so that will be continuing. He's very upset that, as he says, that the management there have linked him to the not to the actual attack on the artistic director Sergei Filin, who had acid thrown in his face. They've not implicated in that, but they've said that was caused, at least in part, by the furore that he raised. He is a very controversial figure there, and it's a perfect example of the kind of chaos that can ensue when you get large personalities vying for positions and attention in these organisations. We've also got the Gogol Centre, which was a theatre. The Gogol Theatre has now been recreated as more of a modern theatre, but when the new director was brought in there, the actors did not like that and tried to conspire against him. And the Taganka Theatre in Moscow as well, a director there announced he's leaving after bitter arguments with actors there. So there's no shortage of examples of these scandals that can be damaging. But the questions that need to be asked now are, how can this proposal, if it becomes law, be carried out fairly?
Absolutely. Well, we'll keep an eye on it. Thank you for the details, our correspondent Tom Barton. OK, yet again on a different note, let's talk about animals. The Moscow Zoo is hoping for a roaring success. It's just welcomed Max the lion all the way from Zurich Zoo. Max is one of a 500 endangered Asiatic lions, half of whom live in captivity. Moscow Zoo has been lionless for some time, so his arrival was eagerly anticipated. The newcomer was a bit suspicious at first, growling at the first visitors, and during his first days in Moscow, Max refused to eat. But now he's making himself truly at home. He's eating 1.5 times as much as the 30 kilograms of meat a day than he normally eats. Oh, sounds like stress to me, but I'm sure everything's going to be fine. Anyway, elsewhere in the country, Ramzan Kadyrov says that Chechnya is a safer place than England. Chechen President Ramzan Kadyrov has sent out an invitation to the world. Come visit us in Chechnya. Kadyrov's invitation comes after Britain's Foreign Office issued a warning to its citizens to avoid travelling to Chechnya, Dagestan, Ingushetia and several areas of Stavropol Krai, all regions here in Russia. In the Russian Northern Caucasus, to be precise. The FCO states only those needing to go there for vital reasons should go. Russia's North Caucasus region remains volatile, with security forces and police regularly clashing with armed criminal groups and Islamic militants. But Ramzan Kadyrov doesn't think it's a problem. Anyway, let's push things on. Ukrainian boxer champ Vladimir Klitschko and Russia's Alexander Povetkin are to fight this August. The WBA has ordered the purse bid for the mandatory heavyweight fight. It may well be the fight of the year, and it's set to take place here in Moscow on the last day of August, so book your tickets. You're watching Primetime on RT. Thanks for being our viewers. It is 33 minutes into the hour, still nearly half the programme ahead. Here's what's coming up. 50 Shades of Grey's Anatomy. The controversial exhibition Secrets of the Human Body comes to Moscow, and we pay a visit. And we'll get the latest entertainment news from our resident culture vulture, Martin Andrews.
At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. We will remember them.
And now to an exhibition the likes of which Moscow has not seen before. It's an anatomical display called Secrets of the Human Body, and it features real bodies that have been cut open and rearranged. Is it morbid voyeurism or is it educational art? Well, earlier I talked to the curator Heidi Pinchel, so let's have a look at that interview. She'll explain. Heidi, welcome to the studio, to Primetime, indeed to Moscow as well, because the Universe Within project is a very well-travelled expo, and it's the first time that it's brought here to Russia.
Yes, it's the first time any exhibit of its kind at all has been to Russia, and we're very happy that we are here in Moscow to present it to the people of Moscow.
It's an interesting, when you say of its kind, that's the key point here. Can you tell me about it, please?
Yes, these are. This is an exhibit, and it's about the actual human body itself, and it's about the secrets that lie inside the human body. And it is a way of looking inside your body that only before doctors have been able to see.
Because of plastination.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes.
This is the technique that's being used. We are actually going to be able to look at real human bodies.
Yes. It's a process called polymer impregnation, and it is a 4-part process that is non-toxic, and there's no odors to it, and every one of the specimens will last virtually forever. So one specimen can educate millions of people and generations to follow.
What essentially happens in very basic terms is that all of the water in an organism is changed to, say, silicone or something like that.
Yes, we use a 4-part process. We dissection, and then the second part is that you put it in a vat of acetone, which is kind of like nail polish remover. Okay. And it wicks all the water molecules out of the body. And then it goes into a second vat, and that is a liquid polymer that are different plastics. And those plastics infuse where the water molecules were. So this is why it is identical to what it was, with almost barely any shrinkage at all. And then after that, it air dries, and that takes approximately 18 months per specimen.
The objects that we're going to be able to see, how are they going to be displayed?
We have about 20 full-body specimens from top to bottom, and each one of those shows you a different system of the body. It might be the internal organs that will show you the heart, it might be something that shows you the stomach, or it might just show you the skeletal system or all the muscles, even the circulatory system. So it's divided up, and then there's about 200 additional organs. So you will see maybe a kidney inside of the actual body where it is, and then you'll also see it by itself, isolated in a case, so that you can study it more closely.
And this is very linked. It's more linked, let's say, it's more linked with education than it is with art.
Yes, we are very much about education. In fact, our mission statement is about education, and we are going around the world trying to educate everyone about their bodies. Globally, we are all living longer lives, and our goal is that you can live a longer, healthier life. So that when you are 90 years old, I want you to be up and dancing and enjoying your great-grandchildren, not sitting in a wheelchair. So that's our goal.
Fantastic. And I think that one of the specimens that shows, for example, the lungs of someone who smokes has a very strong effect on certain people.
We are hoping that it has a strong effect on everyone that comes through, and in fact, at the end, many people actually throw their packs of cigarettes away and stop smoking completely. So it shows you the actual discoloration that occurs in those lungs, yes.
Was it difficult to get all of the paperwork sorted in order to come over and present this expo here in Russia?
Yes, it was. In fact, we were holding our breaths that we did get all the paperwork to come in, so it was difficult. But the process is always good for people to be very cautious about what they're seeing and to make sure that everything is safe for the public as well. And that's the beauty of this. Before, the medical would only be able to see this with a body that had formaldehyde, and that's a very short process, and it's very toxic to our medical doctors to do that. So this is a way that is completely non-toxic and completely harmless.
And anyone can do
Anybody can do it, and you get really close to the specimens as well.
Am I right in understanding that there are going to be some doctors present who would be able to give lectures and explain what's going on?
Yes, we do. We have a full docent staff. Of course, every organ and every specimen has already written down technically what part is, but then we also have docents that will be there to answer any of your questions, and they all have medical backgrounds. Yeah.
The reason why I asked you if it was difficult or not to bring the expo here to Moscow is because in 2009-2010, the man who actually had developed the method of plastination, Gunther von Hagens, he had a problem bringing in his exhibition into Moscow, which was different in the sense that it was more about art, I think.
Yes.
And it made the Orthodox Church very unhappy. Yes. Were there any problems of that kind this time round?
No. What makes us so different from the other exhibitions is the educational content. We are mission-based on education. So I only can bring them anywhere in the world where I am actually educating. So although it's done in an entertaining, beautiful way, it's a gorgeous museum setting and it's very tranquil. So we try to make sure that you're educating that way, but it's all about the education. The human body is beautiful enough. We don't need to enhance it in any way to make it a piece of art.
Yet oddly, certain people still find it quite macabre. Why is the attitude in the 21st century still there?
I think that most people find that because they haven't actually seen the exhibition. And if you just see an isolated pictorial of it, you might consider something like that. But once you are in the exhibit and you see it and you realize that you're actually looking at yourself through a mirror, then you have a total transformation. And it's very, very family friendly, including very small children adore it.
Well, great. It's going to happen in the Vietnamese Art Centre, and all of our viewers should definitely go. Thank you so much for finding the time to chat to us here on Primetime.
Thank you for having us. We're very happy to be here.
And still, if you find that it's not your cup of tea, here are some more going out tips now from Primetime's Martin Andrews. Let's have a look.
Hi guys, good to see you again. I hope you all had a great weekend. With that in mind, let's take a look at some arts and culture news that you can enjoy this week over the holiday period. Starting off, if you have children, perhaps you'll be interested in this next story. This is the puppet theatre near Sokolniki Metro called Žar-птица, also known as Firebird as it's translated to in English. And basically they have dozens of shows for children of all ages, and including international and Russian fairy tales. For many of the young visitors, it's their first stage show. Tickets cost 250 rubles. Take a look. Nice little characters there. 250 rubles, that's around $8, not bad, where you can enjoy a whole spectrum of little and interesting, entertaining characters. We met up with one of the creatives at the theatre. Let's see what she and her little fairy friend had to say.
Our puppet theatre has been on Moscow's theatre scene for 22 years now. We are currently showing 20 fairy tales for children aged from 5 to 12 years old. But we've come up with an idea to cater for teenagers as well, from 12 years old and above. There are very few performances for this audience in Moscow theatres. They're usually either for adults or for little kids, so we've decided to attract teenagers to our theatre too, and it's been a success.
Very nice. Now the weather is finally getting better, can you believe it? So with that in mind, the new open-air theatre, the cinema, is open at Gorky Park. But if you are also wanting to see this film called The Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, you can also head to the Pioneer Cinema too, where it's on this week as well. Of course, it was created in 1998, directed by Terry Gilliam, and it's the savage journey into the American dream, where the famous sports writer goes and causes havoc in Las Vegas. It stars Johnny Depp, Cameron Diaz, Tobey Maguire and Benicio del Toro. It's scored 50% on Rotten Tomatoes, not the best score in the world. Some people love it or hate it. I suppose the critics said that it's not really a through film where there is a standard plot or synopsis, but more a series of sketches. But best of all, it's on at the Pioneer Cinema and Kutivsky Prospect or the Open Air Cinema at Gorky Park. Get your tickets now. Finally, we're always talking about cocktails details every Friday evening on Privilege Russia and Prime Time. So let's talk about mixology of a different form. Take a look at this. This is latte art. Now, I don't like coffee myself, but I certainly do like everything creative. Here you can see the guys create masterpieces with their frothy foam with sugar and milk and cream. A few weeks ago, met a man called Chris Spires, who is involved in the coffee industry here in Russia, where he says there are many different revolutionary things happening in the scene at the moment regarding cafe and coffee culture. Let's see what he had to say, and I will see you at the same time tomorrow. Ciao for now.
Very nice. Okay, well done, thank you. So, Chris, lovely to meet you.
Good to meet you.
Or Mr. Latte, Mr. Coffee. What's your job title? It's very complicated.
I am the national coordinator for the European Specialty Coffee Association, for the Specialty Coffee Association of Europe in Russia.
In Russia, okay.
Yeah.
So we're talking about coffee art and coffee culture.
Yep.
What is this competition we've got today?
We're holding several competitions today. This particular competition is the latte art competition. Competitors have to do several drinks with latte art.
Latte art?
Yeah. So basically they're drawing on coffee.
It smells great.
It
I
should
love
be.
the smell of coffee, but I hate to drink it.
You try that, it'll be very sweet.
I don't like coffee.
That'll be like a very sweet drink. It's lovely, with no sugar added.
Now, you've lived in Moscow for 20 years
I've lived in Russia for 20 years,
Russia.
in St. Petersburg, yeah.
Surely you've seen a complete change regarding coffee culture from, you know, the introduction of Starbucks to the little Chocolnitskaya, and tell me more.
The market is really changing now. I think the Russian market is very like the UK market. Russia used to be a nation of tea drinkers and instant coffee drinkers. And the last 10 years have seen a massive explosion of people opening new coffee shop chains. It started with Coffee House, Coffee Mania, Chocolatnitsa. Yes. Then new people have come onto the market like Starbucks and Costa. And the market is just really buzzing at the moment. Now we're finding independent people opening coffee shops, and that is the exciting thing.
But do you not think it's diluting the Russian society, the symbol of, you know, tea drinking with a samovar, or is it just this American import?
No, it's definitely not it's not an American import. The Russians have actually taken over the specialty coffee idea, and they're kind of making it their own. And we now have a Russian latte art champion who's the world champion in latte art.
But this latte art is very much an American...
No.
It's not? Oh,
no.
Tell me more. I've got this all wrong.
It's latte art started in America, but it's more being taken over by Northern Europe.
I see, okay.
And it's very, very dynamic and very changing at the moment.
Wow. So tell me about your job.
Well, I've got my job as the national coordinator is just really to organize these championships, to encourage the development of specialty coffee in Russia. So we do that through several competitions. We've got the latte art competition, we've got a coffee and good spirits competition, which is coffee with alcohol. We've got a barista championship, which is being held over there. We've got a cup tasting championship where people try different coffees and they have to identify which is the different coffee. And there's a new championship called the Brewmasters Championship, which is people brewing filter coffee.
Right.
And all of these directed at really kind of showing people that coffee is not just a really bad drink. It's something that is an artisan drink, and it is really nice when you can get a decent cup of coffee.
Nice cup of coffee does come at a price here in Russia.
Yep.
Why is that?
I think it's because the Russian market is, the consumer is not yet educated properly. And the consumer, many people can get away with selling a really bad cup of coffee for a lot of money because they don't know what a decent cup of coffee is. And that's what our job is, to show people what a decent cup of coffee is. And then people will start to ask for a decent cup of coffee. But also, I think you have to remember that the rental for coffee shops is very expensive. I mean, to rent a coffee shop in central Moscow is just ridiculously expensive. And they have to pay for that in some way. And part of that is in the cost of the coffee. So, I mean, to rent a small coffee shop in Moscow would be significantly more expensive than anywhere else in the world.
Really?
Yeah.
So next time you moan about your cup of coffee, now you know why.
OK. Let's go back to the centre of Moscow now, where thousands of opposition activists are still gathering. They mark 1 year since mass protests that ended in violent clashes. Last year's anti-government rallies left dozens injured and 400 people arrested. Primetime Alexei Rajevsky can join us again now from the heart of the capital to update us on what's going on there at the moment. So can you please tell us the latest, Alexei? What's it like where you are?
Well, the latest is clearly that the opposition rally in central Moscow is now drawing to a close. In fact, people have just started leaving the area here. It's all been rather peaceful and quiet so far, with the prominent opposition figures stalking from the stage. Just like 5 minutes ago, we listened to Alexei Navalny, one of the probably most popular opposition members in Russia right now. Heavy police presence is here, literally, for every opposition protester. There's 3 policemen. The whole area is cordoned off. I literally had to walk several kilometers to actually get to the site of the Bolotny Square where the opposition rally has been held. There was even a chance, in fact, before the rally that it wouldn't happen at all, because during the construction of a stage, which was happening earlier in the day, a man, a volunteer, 25-year-old man, died accidentally with the debris of the stage collapsing on him. And some of the opposition members were even calling to call the rally off. They were saying that holding it would have been disrespectful to the family of the man who died, and eventually the organizers decided they would go ahead with the rally. It's now almost finished now. We obviously waiting to see whether there will be anything violent happening here, but so far there's been no indication that things may go as ugly as they went exactly a year ago on May the 6th, 2012.
Let's talk about that. You mentioned that there's a very heavy police presence, probably following what had happened a year ago. Can you update us of the events that took place then?
Exactly a year ago on May the 6th, that is exactly the reason why this protest was held today, to mark the anniversary of those events. This was probably the biggest violence that Moscow has seen in many years, with a peaceful rally, an opposition rally was going on quite peacefully until some point when part of the crowd decided to break the police lines and march towards the Kremlin in protest against the current president. This whole protest happened exactly 1 day before Putin's inauguration last year. So scuffles broke out between the police and the opposition members, and eventually this led to dozens injured and more than 400 people were arrested. So the main message coming out here from the stage today was that the people who were arrested and still remain in prison after the events of last year, there's several dozen of them, they are being charged officially by the authorities for inciting riots. The people who have been here today have been demanding their release and describing them as political prisoners. So this has been the main message of the rally, and most of the talk happening from the stage was dedicated to the prisoners of May the 6th, as they are being described by the opposition now.
And going back to what's happening tonight, you mentioned that there are lots of people attending this time round, despite the fact that it's a working day. Is there an estimate of how long it might take for this protest to disperse, for the people to leave?
It's actually hard to say. We know that officially the rally is due to be held until 21:30 local time, Moscow time. But people are starting leaving, as you can probably see as we speak. So the huge crowds moving around me right now. Most of the people are here, the press, but the protesters as well. I reckon it may take an hour or so for all the crowd to disperse, because it's quite a huge crowd. As I told you, there were more than 7,000 people here throughout the day. So it might take several hours, and of course we're expecting traffic jams in the city as well.
Absolutely. Alexei Rashevsky, thank you so much. Okay, and we're just about to finish, but before we do, I have a story for you. It's more of a video, really. I came across it on the internet, and you should have a look. It's part of a larger sort of video stream of videos depicting how bad the roads in Russia are, particularly Siberian roads. Okay, you can see that this is a flooded... It used to be, I guess, a bridge, but it isn't any longer. People still need to get across, and that's what's happening. You've got one excavator loading 3 usually, sometimes a bit more, people in. Another excavator is meeting it halfway People are climbing from one to the other. You can see that the water's is pretty violent. It's a pretty violent stream happening there. So it's all very dangerous. Unfortunately, we don't really have any details of who these people are, where exactly this is happening. We know that this is Siberia, but it's a vast area, and we don't know the exact location of this. All of the comments, now this video became viral quite instantly on the Russian internet. All of the comments are quite patriotic. Nearly everyone's saying that you can never defeat this nation, look at them go. There are some concerned comments, though, saying that if anything goes wrong, who's going to be deemed responsible for it? And then there's another wave of comments actually talking about whether or not the drivers of these excavators are charging people to get through, because as we know, unfortunately, this is something that is quite common for Russian nature. We've seen this happening with taxi drivers when anything occurred in, we'll say, airports, hiking up prices for that. I don't know if this is a paid-for affair or not, but it's certainly something to look at. Look at them go. Everyone looks actually pretty pleased with themselves. Boys will be boys, I suppose. Well, there's more on YouTube. Check it out. Siberian Roads, it's called. It's all from us here from on Prime Time for this Monday evening. We will be back tomorrow at 8 p.m, so please switch your tellies on then. We have an email, primetime@rttv.ru. You can see it on your screens. Also, that's our YouTube page where we post some of the videos that we air. There's a full podcast available on our website, rt.com. And check it out there. And of course, we can stay connected via Twitter and Facebook. Otherwise, have a fantastic evening. There's still lots going on, although we've got a few days of working ahead of us before the holidays kick in again. But Moscow is definitely the place to be at the moment, and it's still pretty calm. Although, unfortunately, as Alexei Rashevsky has told us, the traffic's going to be pretty vile this evening. So check it on Yandex Maps. Bye.